we really could look toward.
Well, Aaron, I think people are getting hung up by the title of the piece, which is, Can Shreveport Look to Memphis for a Reboot? And that was really just to get people to delve into the column. What the overall column mainly is about how the city of Shreveport really needs the numbers to know what our future holds for us. In other words, we can keep doing things the way that we've been doing them for the past 40 or 50 years, but I think we know that if we do things the same way, the outcomes may be the same that we've always gotten. And is that really what taxpayers and elected officials want? So what are different cities doing differently to try to alter those outcomes? And there are several cities doing some really unusual, different things, and Memphis is one of them.
Give me an example of something unusual that is working for Memphis and for other communities.
Well, one of the things that Memphis is doing in this new plan that they've got called Memphis 3.0, and I would encourage everybody to just Google it, just read over it, see what you think. Maybe some of the things they're doing work for us. Maybe they don't. Maybe they need to be tweaked. I mean, after all, we're different cities. But Memphis is making they are telling people, look, we can only pay what we can pay for. That makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, every month you and I have to sit in our kitchen and do our budgets and figure out what we can pay for that month. Cities have not been particularly great at doing that. So Memphis is saying we have a finite amount of resources. How do we utilize them in the best possible way? Where are we getting best return on our investment? Where makes sense for us to deploy our cash, our limited cash resources? And are we going to really incentivize those things or pay for those things that are making us a return in the long term? And I think that is a completely different way for cities to look at things. They really have not looked at how to deploy resources in that manner before.
I was looking and listening to a presentation at a group I forget, and it talks about how much Shreveport has sprawled in terms of taking in so much land, and we don't have the resources to continue to maintain all that property that we've taken in. And Memphis is going up. Is that kind of what Memphis is doing? Rather than spreading out, they're going up?
Yep. And when you say going up, it's like they're money that is created by taller cities. Like when you look at a downtown and you see all the 17-story, 30-story skyscrapers, the tax dollars that you're achieving per acre for those buildings is significantly higher than the tax dollars you're receiving for like a big box store. But what Memphis is looking at and what Shreveport and cities around the country, look, this is not just a Shreveport issue. Let me make that really clear. It is nothing that we have done that every other city in the country hasn't done. It's just catching up with us, and it will catch up with every other city. It used to be that the way you made money, the way you got wealthier, was you annexed, and you got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and you took in all the high-dollar subdivisions, and that gave you a little boost in the near term. It really does.
Bigger tax base, yes.
Yeah, in the long term, over the 20 years, the 30 years, the 40 years, when that infrastructure note comes due, when you've got to redo the water lines, redo the sewer lines, redo the streets, then it becomes less and less of a boost and more and more and more of a hindrance to you. So cities are rethinking that whole theory of annexation now, but unfortunately we're starting to rethink it after we've already annexed. And then, what do? You not only you've stretched your water lines and your streets, but now you have to have more police officers to patrol those areas and more firefighters and more substations and more this and more that. So how do we face the future? And I think that mainly what I'm advocating in the piece in the Times was let's have the numbers so we make our decisions based on fact instead of gut.
And you can't unannex. And then you have our community where you look at you look at the jobs numbers, and you see we've lost 2,700 jobs. We're the worst performer in the state from year to year, and those folks that are in those subdivisions that we've annexed over the years are now moving over to Bossier or DeSoto Parish, and so you're losing some of the residents as a result too. Correct?
Well, we are definitely seeing a decrease in our population number. We are. and we've got more and more property to take care of in between, let's say, our inner city and the farthest reaches of our city limits. So, there's a lot of burden on, again, not just our city, but every city. And it's time for us to, get those numbers, take a good hard look, make some decisions, not for the next 4 years, but for the next 20 years, the next 30 years. And Erin, this is not going to be an easy discussion. It is not everyone's going to be happy. In fact, most everyone, I think, will be a little bit unhappy. But if we don't start having these really tough conversations now, it's going to be far worse for us in the future.
Let me throw a curveball at you. You ready?
Oh, okay.
Okay, Lafayette's done it. Baton Rouge has done it. Why don't we? Combined city-parish government. Is it time to look at it?
Erin, I have never even studied whether that's a smart move for us. Again, I will go back to the fact that we have a huge parish.
Mm-hmm.
It is so much land mass that we're
and Caddo Parish is wealthy. The city's broke.
Let me tell you that money in the bank today does not mean money in the bank tomorrow. And again, as their infrastructure note comes due on all of those hundreds of miles of roads and everything else, all the other infrastructure that they're on the hook for, will they be wealthy in the future? What changes do we need to be making now? I am not convinced, but however, I think it's worth conversation and to see how these other cities are doing and whether it's made a positive difference, not just in the short term, but whether it's projected to make a difference in the long term. But I'm not sure about that yet. I really haven't studied enough on it to know.
Well, thanks for joining us on such short notice. We really appreciate it, and congrats on the really huge news last week. I was out of town, and
it's a great deal.
Heard about it, and I'm excited for it. It looks great.
Thank you.
Liz Swaine, Downtown Development Authority. Appreciate you joining us.